Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the annual California ACC Women in Cardiology Career Development event. I am Dr. Jaya Malidi, Associate Clinical Professor of Cardiology and the co-chair of California ACC WIC Committee. Over the next few minutes, I'm just going to go over briefly the current status of the cardiology workforce and the goals of the WIC committee, as well as our initiatives this year in 2025. Looking at the workforce as well as the trainee workforce in cardiology, here we see that at the time of in the medical school, almost more than half of the medical school students are women. However, as the training progresses, the proportion of women gradually declines substantially. Currently, among all the practicing cardiologists, only 15 to 20% are women, and this is even lower in subspecialties such as interventional cardiology and electrophysiology. So, the goals of Women in Cardiology Committee are to enhance the diversity of the cardiology workforce, encourage trainees at the pipeline level to pursue a career in cardiology by exposing them to inspirational role models in the field and by creating networking opportunities. We also advocate for parity for all women trainees and faculty by providing a very supportive environment for personal, professional growth, as well as leadership. To achieve these goals, at UCSF Cardiology, we started the WIC career development events since 2018. Taking advantage of the virtual platform, we expanded and collaborated with California ACC so that we can expand our reach to all the high school as well as undergraduate students all across California. And year over year, we've had more than 100 registrants for these events. Of special particular interest to the high school students is the cardiac camp at UCSF, which is a free camp for about a week that is conducted by the medical students at UCSF, where the high school students are exposed to cardiac anatomy, physiology, as well as mentorship is provided during this camp. In addition to these events, the California ACC has had a very active 2015 year, 2025 year. We've had several engagement events for early faculty, residents, medical students, as well as our fellows. However, this is our last event for this year, and it is our most cherished and favorite event as it is really geared towards our young trainees from high school and undergraduate colleges. I would like to thank all the California ACC WIC committee members who helped in organizing these events. You're going to be meeting many of them today. And now I would like to hand over the stage to my colleague and co-chair from University of Southern California, Dr. Helga Van Hurley, to share her thoughts and welcome you all as well.
Thank you, Jaya. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to pull up my slide set. And again, I agree. This is sort of the pinnacle of what we do during the year, and it's very exciting for all of us. Let's see, slideshow. Here we go. So again, welcome. I'm Helga Van Hurley. I'm one of the co-chairs of the WIC committee for the California ACC. I'm also a professor at USC and the program director for the cardiology fellowship, and diversity is very important to me, and the value of workplace diversity has been well established. As Dr. Malati sort of pointed out, the rate for change in cardiology is a little bit slower than the rest of medicine. And so together, I think a lot of the faculty here and fellows feel we want to actively promote that change, and the time is now. And here are some of the reasons. What does workforce gender diversity add to the specialty, especially of cardiology and medicine? Well, heart disease is the leading cause of death in both women and of men in the U.S., but many studies show that women have suboptimal outcomes with a high mortality compared to men presenting with the same heart disease process. And women will often present later in life with heart disease and are less likely to be referred for sort of the typical guideline-directed optimal medical therapy. There are some studies that show the outcome differences for women are improved compared to men when women are treated by female cardiologists. makes sense. And other studies suggest that female cardiologists adhere more to guidelines and evidence-based medicine, spend more time communicating with their patients, and have lower mortality and readmission rates. So cardiologists can make a big impact in people's lives. And there still remain significant gender disparities in the management of heart disease, and this will continue to improve with expanding the vision of female cardiologists and scientists in this amazing field of cardiology, of medicine. So here are some of the things that we've done at USC to promote that. We offer shadowing opportunities, especially during the summer months for high school students, both male and female. And these are some of our female internal medicine residents, fellows, and high school students in different parts of the hospital. They get to follow us around, see procedures, meet with our patients. We also go out to high schools. This is where we've done some pig heart dissections in high school biology classes. I bring along the pig hearts as well as some residents and fellows to sort of let students know what the path has been like for these people going into medicine and to cardiology. We've had some community outreach in middle schools as well. These are two of our female fellows who went out to a local middle school with a patient, went over a little bit of the pathophysiology of heart disease, and had a patient sort of give his experience of the case. And the patient was actually cared for by one of our fellows when he was really sick in the hospital. And then we have opportunities at the medical school. Our fellows are involved in teaching medical students, and it's always nice to have a female fellow leading the charge. We also mentor our medical students, and these are some of their posters at a national meeting that we go to. And then we have community building events, as Dr. Malati alluded to. We've done a lot in Southern California as well as Northern California with fellows, faculty, and some of the medical students and residents on our campus. There are several resources through the American College of Cardiology, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, for different levels of learners. So the Young Scholars Program is really designed for high school and undergraduate students who are interested in careers in cardiology, science, or healthcare. It's on our website. There's opportunities to get plugged into mentors. There is a program for medical residents and a community there to help them sort of prepare for potentially applying for a fellowship in cardiology. And then there's a fellow in training section of the ACC, and all are really wonderful resources. And we'll maybe discuss a little bit later in the breakout rooms as well. So women really do lead the way, and we are really excited to have this morning with you. We want to help you explore the field of cardiology as a potential career, support you, mentor you, and hopefully inspire you. So next, I want to just introduce the amazing organizer of this event, Dr. Megan Pelter. She has an amazing background. She completed her undergrad degree in biology and with minors in astrobiology and classics from the University of Southern California, where she graduated magna cum laude and was a resident scholar. She subsequently went on to complete her MD degree at the University of California, Riverside, where she was a member of the inaugural class. She then went on to do her internship and internal medicine residency at Scripps Health in La Jolla, where she also finished her fellowship in cardiology and served as a chief fellow, which is a really busy job, sort of balancing clinical work with administrative and educational work. She is currently an assistant professor of advanced heart failure and transplant after finishing her heart transplant fellowship at UCLA. She is the associate program director of the Heart Failure Fellowship Program at the International Heart Institute at Loma Linda Medical Center. She's a fellow of the American College of Cardiology. She's done amazing thing, and she won the California ACC Fellow of the Year Award for all of her efforts as a chair of the California chapter of the ACC Fellows in Training section. So, Megan, I'm going to let you take it away.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Dr. Van Hurl, for that wonderful, very kind introduction. I have to ask you how you got half of that information as well. But hello, everybody, and welcome. Today, we are excited to explore the amazing world of cardiology and hear from an inspiring group of cardiologists as they share their unique journeys. Our hope is that by the end of today, you'll walk away energized and maybe even inspired to join us for this incredible field. Now, this event would not have been possible without the support of my co-chair and mentor, Dr. Purvi Parwani. Dr. Parwani, thank you for your guidance and dedication. I'd also like to acknowledge the California ACC Women in Cardiology Committee with their fantastic co-chairs as well, many of whom are here today. Your hard work and commitment makes events like these possible. Now, before we go further, I promise I have only a couple of slides, but this is an agenda and a quick overview of our program. So we'll begin with our keynote speaker, Dr. Vivian Mo, followed by a brief Q&A. Next, we'll transition to our panel of cardiologists for a discussion on their career paths and experiences. And afterwards, after the panel, we'll hear from two leaders of the ACC, Dr. Jamal Rana, as well as Dr. Anthony Hillard. Now, to close the event, we're going to please stay for our breakout sessions if possible, where you'll have the chance to connect in smaller groups with our speakers and other faculty, an opportunity to ask deeper questions of both the triumphs and challenges of the journey to cardiology. Now, before we begin, just a couple of house rules. If you could please, on your Zoom account, please rename yourself to indicate the level of training next to your name. So if you wanted an example, look at mine. I said faculty because I am an attending from that standpoint. So that would be really helpful to break you out into the breakout sessions and provide good communication and dialogue. Next, all attendees will be on mute for all sessions except the breakout rooms. And if you do have any questions or comments, which we highly encourage, particularly for our panel and our Q&A for our keynote speakers, please write it in the chat, and either myself or one of our fantastic moderators for the panel will group the questions and ask them to our speakers. And then finally, the conference is being recorded except for the breakout sessions and will be posted ultimately on the California ACC website. We will finally move on to the keynote speaker, which is great. So it is my honor to welcome Dr. Vivian Mo as our keynote speaker. Dr. Mo is a clinical professor at the Keck School of Medicine of USC. She completed her internal medicine residency and cardiology fellowship at UT Southwestern before joining USC's faculty. She currently serves as interim chief of cardiology and chief medical officer of the USC Care Medical Group, guiding clinical operations across Los Angeles General Medical Center, Keck Medical Center, and the Cardiac and Vascular Institutes of USC. So that's a lot of wonderful work, both from the clinical research as well as the leadership standpoint. So today she will share her insights on the passion, persistence, and heart that shape the journey into cardiology. Welcome, Dr. Mo. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. This is a great showing. It's wonderful to see so many people here. I don't have any slides. I was really just going to kind of talk about how I got to where I am and maybe just offer some insights. I think probably questions will come in on the chat or whatnot, and then we'll have some time to speak afterwards. But yeah, if people want to kind of interject, it's absolutely fine. In any case, so I have been at USC for quite some time. I get to work with the wonderful Dr. Van Hurley. She and I were office mates, roommates, whatever you might call them. We shared an office for almost 10 years. So I know Helga very, very well. And it's wonderful actually to, you kind of forget in your daily life the people that shape your work life, because she was showing pictures of all the women in cardiology. You kind of forget that there's so many women in cardiology and we have fantastic fellows. I am super excited. She did not tell you this, but I'm super excited that we actually just had our fellowship match. So it happens once a year. And of the 5 fellows that we match each year, we have 3 women in that cohort, and they come from fantastic places. I interviewed them. We're so thrilled to have them. So I think what's also funny about cardiology is I really, throughout my life, obviously we're all women here, but you kind of forget that there's a division. In your life, you go about your life, but you forget that there really is very much a gender division. And it never was made more apparent to me until I think I attended as a fellow my first American College of Cardiology conference. And it was, I think, in New Orleans. And I went. And the thing that struck me the most, aside from meeting like the pillars and grandfathers of cardiology, was actually going to the bathroom. Because when I went to the bathroom, there was no line for the women's bathroom, and the line for the men's bathroom is around the corner. That really signified to me that there were not enough women in cardiology. And I've never really felt that there were not enough people like me or like us in the field. But when I went to that meeting, it was incredibly apparent to me that we are still in a world where this field is largely dominated by women. So when Jai was presenting that information, that actually more than half of medical school applicants or medical school enrollees are women, that's just fantastic to see, because even though it's not been an easy road, it's been an incredibly rewarding world. So let me just start by saying that I did not grow up knowing I was going to be a cardiologist. Actually, I went to college. I'm from Texas, and I went to college. I applied to the School of Architecture. So I really thought I was going to be an architect. And what was interesting about that is that I showed up on the first day of college, right, bright-eyed, super excited to be in that kind of what you think to be final phase of your education, and it was not. But I go into my class in my studio, and I'm still very good friends with actually all the people that were in my studio. And over the course of that first year, what I did realize was that I am thrilled to be with these people. They ended up being lifelong friends, but it's really about recognizing kind of maybe not knowing what your talent is, but knowing what something fits or doesn't fit with you, right? Like we all have kind of gut feelings about something that we're good at. All of us are good at one thing, if not multiple things. And you kind of pursue that, right? It's something that you engage in. Probably many of you who are in high school, I realize now, because I have a junior in high school here. It's not my daughter. My daughter's very young, but she comes and babysits for me. And so when she comes and babysits for me, I'm always asking her, like, what are you up to? You know, I want to know what the young people are up to. And I think it's so interesting that when I was in high school, it was about doing a lot of different things, like really rounding out that portfolio so that when you apply, you can put all these activities on it. And I realized with her, she's a very, very smart girl. I realized with her, she's like, oh, it's not like that anymore. She's like, now it's about really focusing in on one thing that you do really well. So for her, it's debate, and there's this whole world of debate that she is engaged with that I never even knew existed. But so I think that for the younger women in this conference here, it's a different world, and I don't really understand it, but I try to. But I think you have a different set of obstacles, and it's just applying to college is different. All that to say is that now it seems like there's a subspecialization of interest, of focus, of whatever it may be at an earlier age. But to know that, you know, if you engage in something, it is still all about leading with your heart, right? That's about something that really fulfills you, that you get a lot out of, that maybe people around you get a lot out of, people recognize you for, you know, your excellence in that. And that's definitely worth pursuing. So I did not have that feeling when I was in architecture. I'm in the studio. These people are my cohort. They're fantastic people. And I realized as we're, you know, we do this thing where we would design something and we would all go around to each person's studio as part of the studio with the professor. And he, you know, the person would describe kind of their concept for having, we had to design a motorcycle museum, and they would give kind of their concept for designing it. And as it got around to all, you know, we're walking around, I was like, I don't have the talent that these people have. These people who are like me, you know, 18 at this fantastic school of architecture. And I was like, these people are meant for great things in architecture. But I don't I fondly appreciate architecture, the beauty of it, the form of it, the aesthetics and all of that. But this is not something that I excel at in terms of design. And so after actually my first year of architecture studio, I switched over to being pre-med. And I actually had a really good friend in that same studio who also switched over pre-med. She's like, I don't know if I'm up for this, you know. She's like, this is not what I thought it would be. So we both became pre-med. And so I clearly went down the road of pre-med, you know, went into medical school. But what was really interesting about her is that after a year of pre-med, she was like, no, this is really not meant for me. I really do not like pre-med. And so guess what she did? She went back to architecture. And what's incredible about her, she realized, wow, this is what, and I always thought she was the best in our class. I do not know why she left architecture, but she's her. And I was like, yeah, come do pre-med with me. But she went back to architecture, and she actually ended up probably being the premier architecture student in her class. We have internships in architecture after 4 years of an architecture program of a bachelor's of architecture, and then you get assigned to different architecture firms around the world. She was assigned to the most premier one, which was Renzo Piano in Paris. So she lived in Paris for a year, came back. She's incredible. She's so artistic, so it's also just a divergent story from mine, but knowing what really empowers you, what you really, it takes time. So you don't have to rush that kind of, I need to figure out what I need to do. Yes, you need to figure out what you need to do, but do it in your time and really kind of listen to yourself, right? And there are a lot of people will offer advice, your parents, your friends, whatever it may be, but at the end of the day, it's your own decision. And so I think many of the ones that are on here, many of the people that are on here, it is about gathering information. Is this something I want to do? Is it something, let me shadow someone. Is their day in the life so exciting to me? So I think, with that, that's kind of how I started my journey, which was not in medical school, going to medical school, but ultimately led that way. And then kind of the second roadblock I met, it wasn't a roadblock at the time. I didn't recognize it was. But I remember doing my, third year clerkship. So in your third year clerkships, you're rotating through the major fields of medicine, OB-GYN, pediatrics, medicine. I really actually loved my surgical subspecialty. I really loved the surgical rotations, but I didn't love their schedule, like I can get up at 4 a.m. just like anybody else, but I just was like, so I ended up not really interested in general surgery, but saying, oh, maybe I'll do a surgical subspecialty. So I really got interested in ENT. I loved, if any of you have taken gross anatomy of any kind, the head and neck has an amazing amount of anatomy, in terms of the facial nerves and all of that. So I ended up having a fantastic rotation, actually. I was at UT Houston, which is linked to MD Anderson. So there was a very, very famous head and neck surgeon, cancer surgeon, and he was like, yeah, come rotate with me, see if this is what you want to do, And so in my fourth year, the first elective I took was a head and neck cancer rotation with this gentleman. And he was like, even better yet, I don't have a fellow this month. I have nobody training with me. They're not on this rotation. So guess what? You get to do everything with me, right? And that's actually an incredible opportunity. Because usually if any of you have been in an OR, the head surgeon's there, his or her second assistant is across from them. Then it's like all the trainees, like the medical student is very much at the end and like tiptoeing to see what they're doing up there. But no, I got to stand right next to him because he had nobody training with him. And I remember thinking, okay, this is what I want to do. I need to learn everything about this. I was doing research with this gentleman as well. So three things told me I was not meant to do this after the end of the rotation. One was that he would do 9-hour surgeries and I was falling asleep. So I would literally be standing next to him and he's like got his loops on and he's like trying to dissect out nerves in the neck. And I'm like just there to hand him things or, talk to him. And I was falling asleep. And I nearly fell into the patient once. And I was like, okay, this is probably not meant for me. The second clue that I knew it wasn't meant for me was I was reviewing charts. So part of my research with him was to review patient charts, right? So you're getting Joe Smith and you're going through all the charts, trying to collect data from this chart. And I never really found the chart that interesting, except the EKG, right? So the electrocardiogram where we're looking, every person pre-op gets an EKG. And that I found interesting. I was like, wow, these wiggles mean something, because I'd be copying down the finding. And so I was like, okay, well, these are much more interesting to me than, 30-year history of smoking, and now comes in with a big base of tongue cancer. Anyway, so that was one more clue. And the third clue was this. I went to round with him post-op. So we finished 9 hours of surgery. And he's like, let's go see my patients from yesterday that I operated on. So I walk with him. And I remember going into this gentleman's room and the room was pitch black. He had all the blinds down, no lights on. And the ENT surgeon goes in and he's like, oh, Mr. Smith, how are you doing? And, they're kind of talking and whatnot. He's like, okay, show me. So he turns on all the lights in the room. And then the patient's sitting in front of me. He had a big nasopharyngeal cancer. And so the gentleman, I go into the room and he's there and he's like, show me. And so the guy literally takes off his nose prosthesis and he looks like a skull because he had a big nasopharyngeal cancer that this physician resected, and he wanted to see how the prosthesis was and how the healing was inside. After that, I was like, this is it. I can't do this, I can't stand in the surgeries. As much as I love anatomy and whatnot, like this is not what I can do for the rest of my life. And so that was kind of a pivoting point. So I had my pivoting point in college, I had another pivoting point in medical school, and then I had another one in residency. So what's funny, you can probably tell I'm kind of an indecisive person, and that's okay. We are all indecisive. I mean, you go to like a grocery store and there's like 50,000 jams, and you're like, I just need one jam, and you're standing there for like 12 minutes trying to figure out what jam you want because there's so much choice. And that's the thing. There's so much choice in your life. It's called the paradox of choice, where you're kind of almost paralyzed by how much choice you have. And so through your kind of young lives and as you get older, it's really about trying to figure out, well, I have all this choice, but what is the best choice for me? What is something that I fit into? And I think really what it comes down to is what's going to affect your day to day. There are things that we become passionate about, but what is it that I can do every day that I love doing? And it honestly doesn't seem like work. Because when you're kind of, as if you're taking 7 subjects in high school or college, some of them are just required and you're just like slaving through it. You're like, okay, I'm just going to slog through this. And then some of them you're like, I love this class. She wanted me to read 3 chapters. I'm just going to finish it because it's fascinating, right? So those are the kinds of clues that you need to really listen to in your life to kind of help guide you into figuring out what it is that you want to do. So I reached the third crossroads in my medicine residency. So I go off to medicine residency. So I decided ENT is not for me. I'm going into residency, medicine residency. And it was not an easy choice. And actually, I thought I was going to be a radiologist. And Helga will know that actually I'm kind of a radiologist as it is right now, even though I have cardiology before my name. But what happened is I was like, well, I'm not doing ENT. I'm gonna go into medicine, and I still don't know what I want to do, but I really love imaging. So I took a radiology rotation and I really loved it. And so I ended up applying in medicine and internal medicine and in radiology. And I really thought radiology, this is it. When I was applying, you will know this for some of the older people on here that are applying for residencies. It goes in phases. Radiology at that time was really hot. Everybody wanted to be a radiologist, everybody. So it was very, very highly competitive. And so what happened was I applied to internal medicine and radiology while you're flying around the country back when we had to fly everywhere for our interviews. And I remember I was living in Texas, in Houston, and UT Southwestern gave me an internal medicine residency interview. And I said, you know what? I'll drive up 4 hours to Dallas. I know people that I went to med school with that are already there. I'll just stay with it. It'll be practice. I need to practice my interview skills. And that one's easy, right? But I actually had no intention of staying in Texas. I'd been there for a long, long time in my life. I really wanted to see some other place in the country. I really wanted to leave Texas. So I go to my interview at UT Southwestern as a practice interview. I fly to all my interviews in New York. I fly to all my interviews in California because I was like, I'm New York, California. I'm going to the big city. And guess which interview I ended up liking the most and which place I loved the most, which was UT Southwestern. The first place I went to that I had no intention of going to, and I ended up loving it. And so when it came time for my rank list, I ranked it number 1. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm committing to this, that I will stay in Dallas or stay in Texas for another 3 years. And I matched there and I couldn't have been happier. I absolutely loved my residency, loved it so much that I was like, I'm going to continue training here. And so the fourth crossroads was that while I was training, I really loved nephrology. I really thought I was going to be a kidney doctor. And the reason I thought that was because in medical school and in residency, I absolutely loved physiology. And granted, every single organ has a specific type of physiology that's fascinating associated with it. But I really thought the kidneys were it, because the kidneys have an amazing ability to regulate salt, bicarb, get rid of waste, hang on to waste, hang on to things that you need. I mean, if you've learned about the nephron, it is something incredibly fascinating. What's funny is that as a cardiologist, the organ I value the most right after the heart is the kidney. I will know if a patient is going to do well based on their kidney disease. So I really thought I was going to do kidney disease. I got to be friends with all the kidney faculty. I did kidney rotation after kidney rotation. And ultimately, I did not apply in kidney disease because I still went back to the EKG. I was like, you know what? I just actually really love taking care of these cardiac patients. And what was happening was that I was like, again, coming back down to, can I do this every day? I had a mentor when I was a medical student. He was a pediatrician. And one of the most important pieces of information or kind of advice he gave us was like, when you're picking a field, pick a field that you love to hear about. Do not pick a field that you just can't stand the story. He's like, if you don't like hearing about taking care of headaches, do not go into neurology. And to this day, I obviously still use that. I loved kidney physiology. I still do. I do not like dialysis. And dialysis is a lion's share of what the kidney physicians do, which is writing dialysis orders, you know, moving around electrolytes. Which bag are you going to use? What's your KT over V? What's your EGFR? There's nothing exciting to me about that. I was like, I respect it, but this is not what I want to do. But I realized that I could listen to chest pain stories all day. And somebody else walking on the street would be like, there's no way I could listen to yet another chest pain story. When the ER is consulting me for chest pain, they're like, blah, 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 chest pain, blah, blah. I was like, well, tell me more about it. Or I'll go talk to the patient about it. I actually really enjoyed it. And that's kind of how I knew. That's kind of how I knew that even though I appreciate many types of physiology, that what I really enjoyed doing on a day-to-day basis was taking care of cardiac patients. And I think the way that I chose cardiology, and I'm sure every single woman on here, every single faculty on here, there's a reason. There's a specific reason why they chose cardiology. Because of all the fields in medicine, it's not the easiest. It does not have a cush call schedule. The physiology is fascinating. But I think for me, it's one of those fields where there are people who get sick and don't get well, but there are tons of people who get sick with cardiac disease and do very well. So I think it's not the most altruistic, like seeing patients. Yes, we love seeing patients get better, but it's satisfying for us, right, to take care of them. And so I think seeing that, like, oh my gosh, this guy just came in with a massive heart attack. So-and-so took him to the lab. They're now in the CCU. And 3 days later, they're walking out and hanging out with their, grandkids for Christmas. I mean, there's no better story than that. And it's obviously great for the patients, but it's really satisfying as, I think, a physician too, to know that you could get them to that. And I would also say that having been in this field for over 20 years is that it's one of these things that you just keep learning from. The way that I trained in cardiology, I finished my training in 2007, which was 18 years ago. And at that time, you're at the forefront. You know the most you know to do. This is the most advanced parts of cardiology. I just trained with all of this. And I will tell you, as many of the other faculty, well, half of it is obsolete. The things that I trained in, that I put a lot of emphasis on, I've had to constantly renew. My education. That's why we have continuing medical education. This is why we have conferences with each other, why we meet with each other, to keep ourselves abreast of what is going on in cardiology. It is one of the fastest moving fields. So like I said, for example, we used to debate whether we should take somebody to the cath lab if they were maybe having a heart attack. No, that was early invasive versus a conservative therapy. Those are not even things that any of you will ever learn about. It is all about early invasive now. We don't even use that word early invasive anymore because that's just now standard. We just go. So we don't debate whether we should take somebody to the cath lab when they show X, Y, and Z. We know that we should take them to the cath lab or get them to a cath lab if we don't have one. So the field of cardiology has really changed a lot. It's changed not only in the way we take care of patients, it's changed in terms of technology, the things that we have available for our patients. We intersect with so many of the other fields. For example, when I was in training, there's me, cardiology. I mean, we do a lot of procedures, but I'm not, doing sternotomies and doing open heart bypass. I'm not doing surgery of that kind. But the number of therapies that we can now offer to patients, that we can do transcatheter through the groin, so that we don't have to cut somebody open, has exploded to the point now that everybody used to be wanting to be a cardiac surgeon, right? And open the heart, replace a valve, do bypass surgeries. Those days are waning because we are able to do so much more that is not as invasive, that is going through the groin. Somebody who used to need a surgical aortic valve replacement and then stay in the hospital for 5 days, now we can do transcatheter aortic valve replacements. They go home in 2 days. They don't have a sternotomy scar. They're out mowing their lawn in 3 weeks. So I think that's also something about cardiology that is incredibly unique, that it's every field is like this, fast-paced, moving, innovation, but we're really able in cardiology to bring it to the forefront, and we're practicing it. Things that I've heard about, we're practicing it. It doesn't actually take that long to come, and we're really making differences in patients' lives. So I think, there's so much. I love talking to young people or people who are thinking about careers in cardiology, because they asked me these questions like, how'd you get there? It was not a straight road for me at all. You can tell I always kept reaching a fork and chose one thing over another. And so I think the gist of it, if you take anything out of this, is that you've got to follow your heart. Um, uh, you've got to really be true to yourself. People might say, oh, you really should do this. You will have mentors or people who you really admire be like, you really should be doing this. Ultimately, you have to decide what you want to do and really speak to your strengths, speak to your interests, right? I think all of us have felt pressure from our parents or siblings or friends, like, oh, you really should think about this. I'll tell you the funniest story. It's not about me, it's about my sister. My sister is a lawyer. She doesn't do anything what we do, but when she was younger than me, and when she was in high school, she did an internship. And maybe some of you are too young to remember this, but the older people on this will laugh. She did an internship with this company in Houston called Enron. Exploding company. Everybody in the world knew about Enron. It's all about energy, and their headquarters in Houston. She got a very illustrious internship with them. A year later, they offered her a job. She was about to graduate college, and they offered her a job. And my mother, who is kind of a more conservative person, she was like, you really should take that job. Enron, fantastic company. You should really take that job. Stay in Texas. And she had never left Texas. And she comes to me and she's like, what do you think? She's like, I also have this job offer from Price Waterhouse in New York. I don't know New York, but I have some good friends there. I was like, leave. Go explore something new. Please do not stay here. As much as I would love having you here, because I'm in medical school here and I would love, but you should just get out and see the world. Go see New York. Do it for a year or two, So if any of you know the story of Enron, it went bankrupt. There was like a huge corruption scandal, and it no longer exists as an energy corporation. There's a fantastic documentary on it called The Smartest Guys in the Room. But it's very funny that, that was her crossroads. She had to follow her heart. She's like, I don't want to stay here. And I was like, Enron will be here or not. But go follow your heart. And she couldn't be happier with her career choice and where it's led her. So all that to say is follow your heart. Explore what most interests you, because you're going to hopefully do it for the rest of your life, or allow yourself the opportunity of something that allows you to pivot, and I think that to me, the take home story is that even if you go down a road and it seems like there's no point of return, there's another crossroads. You can absolutely shape and direct where you are going. So I don't know what my timing is. I don't want to go over it, but perfect. Let me just end there. And I'm happy to field questions. I haven't taken a look at the chat, but let me open that up so I can see questions.
Don't you worry. I've been monitoring it for you. An
Okay.
excellent talk. Fabulous. I really love hearing the story of how, you got to your, fantastic cardiology career as well as being the chief medical officer at USC. There's been a lot of questions flooding in. We'll get to them directly. I think the first one you had mentioned, mentorship throughout the course of your journey here. And that I think is very important, especially for our high school and undergraduates. So, how do you find mentors for, the audience? What are things that you look for in a mentor? And then conversely, what are things that you look for in a mentee?
It's funny. We look for mentors, but you don't really pick them, right? It becomes a relationship that's really organic, that they have an interest in you because you're interested in whatnot. I would say probably one of my mentors have actually not always been women. So I want to emphasize that there are very strong women that have had influence in my life, but there have also been really strong men. Probably one of my biggest mentors was actually in my fellowship. Um, his name is Ben Levine. He's still working. And he was in my fellowship. I was when we're third year fellows at UT Southwestern, it's a year of research. There's very little clinical duty. So he really allowed me. He's like, I rounded with him in the CCU, and he really kind of took a shine to me. And the reason he did so was because he knew I loved physiology. And so he's like, well, I've got this project in Tibet. I think you'd be really, he's like, you speak Mandarin. Okay, they speak Tibetan now in Tibet, but there is actually a fair amount of Mandarin being spoken. But regardless, he's like, I have a postgraduate doc that really needs help. Would this be of interest to you? Because I was looking for a project for my third year of research. Um, and throughout kind of my career, I'll tell you the most fascinating thing, the thing that I really took from him, I'm always playing, study ideas off of him, right? Like he's guiding me through my research. And one of the things that I remember my program director was like, how are things going with Ben? And I was like, they're going great. He's like, what's great about Ben? He's like, the best thing about Ben is that for him, we think about people thinking outside the box. I mean, this is a gentleman that is a cardiologist. He runs his own exercise institute. He wanted to be um, uh, an astronaut. And the only reason he's not an astronaut is because his vision is too poor, but he still thinks like an astronaut. But in any case, he was like, the best thing about Ben is that he doesn't not just think out of the box. For him, there is no box. And that's so true. And so since that time, I kind of use that to shape like we see limits, we see ceilings, there are obstacles, but honestly, it's a lot of it is in our head. We think that there's a barrier there, but there really isn't. So you got to get up there and to realize if there really is a barrier and to think outside of that. So I think we will have different mentors throughout our life, but it's someone that really kind of takes, you have a mutual interest. And if you find that person or just ask that person, and like I said, it is kind of an organic process. Even now, even at my older age and in my position, I still have mentors right now, people that I really look up to, that I go to for advice, whom I really value. So it's kind of it's a lifelong journey.
Excellent. And it is indeed a lifelong journey. You never stop learning, you never stop mentoring and being a mentee as well. So I think that's wonderful. And kind of attached to that, you mentioned going to ACC and, being the only woman in the bathroom and a long line of men outside their own bathroom. So one of the question is, what advice do you have for women who want to pursue a male-dominated field like cardiology, in particular?
Well, I think first of all, it's really changed, right? I mean, just with our fellowship match this week, I was like, they're here, which is great. I mean, and I think honestly, as women, like I'm sure other people have said this, but I can't emphasize it enough, is that women have to help women. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I see a woman not help a woman. That angers me when I see that. Where we have it hard enough in a field that is male dominated, that if we don't help each other, that there's that is just shutting the door on turning your back on someone. So I think it is hard to be in a male dominated, but at the same time, there's so many more women in cardiology now. Hang on to them, talk to them. What have been their barriers? I will say this, that even though I think we are still in a male dominated field, you kind of just have to go toe to toe. You don't have to be super aggressive or anything like that. It takes time for men to warm up to a woman. I've had it hard, and Helga will know. I'm the interim chief over 25, 30 cardiologists. 20 of them are men at least. And some of them have a very hard time taking orders, direction from a woman. And I think part of it is that they're a different generation. They're 20 years older than me. They're just not used to it. But I would say the younger men, they actually enjoy the collegiality of a woman. I think, and they have absolutely no problem answering to a woman. It's not even answering, it's just being colleagues, it's incredibly generational, I've noticed. And in this leadership position, I think you'll also know that you have to know your audience. I tell people all the time, part of leadership is learning who you're talking to and who you're resolving a conflict with and who you're negotiating with, knowing how they respond. Some guys, there are some things, some people I have to be incredibly direct with. I can't beat around the bush. I get online with them. I'm like, I need you to do this, this, and this. What happened here? I wouldn't talk to somebody else like that. If that's not how they're going to respond. Some people appreciate it. Some people are like, whoa, you came, hot out the gates. And I was like, well, I just know that this is how this man is going to respond to me. And this is not how I should be talking to, Jane or, and so it's that, it's learning how to interact with colleagues. And honestly, that's something that you have to learn on the job. I've taken coaching classes before. And they teach you to that, but it is very experiential, very much about getting it, under your belt and learning how to do that.
Excellent. I love, of course, women being there for women is fabulous. I 100% agree with that. And of course, advocating for yourself, especially in a male-dominated world, is very crucial. And going back to the point about, women mentees as well. A lot of the challenges that come along with being a woman in cardiology, men don't have to face. For example, starting a family, being potentially having pregnancy, so on and so forth. So one of the question is, how many women have you seen successfully start a family prior to becoming a cardiology attending?
Prior to starting, well, yeah, my story is different. I had my child very late in life, but I remember in residency, and actually now we have several women in our fellowship that actually, or men also that had children. But you know, this is the thing. We are planners. Women are planners. I was like, I'm going to college, then I'm going to high school, I'm going to med school, and then I'm going to do this. We are planners. That's fine. We should plan. But what happens is that life happens outside of planning. Absolutely, right? You're like, I'm going to get married by I'm 30. I'm going to have my 2 kids by the 30. No, that was my plan. No, I didn't have 2 kids. I had one. I got pregnant at 44. I mean, like, that's just not how it is. So the thing is I think that if that's what you're planning, you absolutely can do it. And I think also women have it. I think hopefully the work environment is much more conducive to that. I think probably before my time, I would have been afraid to be like, oh man, I have to take this break. No, I don't think so. The number of female cardio, I mean, I'll speak, Helga has 4 children. They're adults now. I don't even know how she did it. When I first met Helga, I remember she brought her youngest son because, there was no school that day and whatever. And I was like, how are you raising 4 children? She did it. She was pregnant during fellowship. You do it and you will figure it out, and you just have to find the people that help you. When I find out that, my faculty are pregnant or whatever, I'm like, how can I help you? What can I do? And I would say that one of my female faculty, she did get pregnant, and her immediate supervisor was like, okay, we're just going to shift. We're going to put this person on this service. We're going to put this person on service. I mean, it is a group effort, but you will find that you do have to get support at work, but I think it easier now. But it's a planning thing, just let people know first. Don't let them know at the end so that they can help you.
Excellent. I think that's very, very important, especially when we're trying to balance, life, work outside of cardiology, as well as, of course, our jobs as well. Oh my goodness, there's so many good questions coming through the chat. We have time for probably one more. Let's see. So maybe ending with what do you think are the modern day challenges women interested in cardiology face, especially given that the landscape is now changing and there's more women representation? What do you think residents in training should today know?
Um, I think this. I think that you need to go after things in your life with the mentality that there's nothing that's out of your reach. You just got to go for gold. You know, if it's something you really want, you got to go for gold. That being said, it is really hard. You know, it's like I think a lot of us, I still believe this to some extent, but now I've been given pause. Women can have it all. It's very hard to have it all. And I think sometimes we're really harsh on ourselves. So we think that we can have a career, have children, be a wife, take care of our parents. I mean, there's so many roles that we have. And I'm going to give credit to my male colleagues. A lot of them do this too. The men this age are much more involved with child rearing than, say, my dad's generation. So we do have a lot of help, but I think, don't beat yourself if you don't think you have it all. It's really, really hard. I can't put dinner on the table most days of the week. It's just, I'm exhausted. Okay. I think you have one, you're like, oh my God, now I have to spend an hour making a meal. What's in it's really hard. And so I think you strive to have it all, but don't beat yourself if you don't and accept help. Like, I think a lot, half the time my husband's like, let me help you. I'm like, no, 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 I can do it. He's like, why do you do this? Just let me help you, you know? And so I think sometimes we're really bad at accepting help. Um, and so, there's a woman, I don't remember her name. I want to say her name. I'm gonna butcher it. It's Anne-Marie Slaughterhouse. She actually was an advisor to President Obama, and he had like made her chief of staff or something. She was a professor, a law professor at Princeton. So she had this conversation with her husband. It's like, I've just been asked by President Obama to be, all of this. And he was like, I'm going to help you make it happen. So her husband, they were living in Princeton, New Jersey, and she was commuting to DC all the time to do her White House role. And she's like, at one point she writes in this book, she's like, I realize I can't have it all, and I need help. She's like, and she's a very capable, highly educated, two sons, a husband that's willing to help her. And she was like, something's got to give here. And so I think that, we should not, that shouldn't lessen our dream to have it all. But at the same time, we need to be more forgiving of ourselves if we don't reach it. Because men don't. Men, I'll tell you right now, they're very forgiving of themselves.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mo, for your fabulous presentation, your talk, and of course, answering all the questions. I'm sorry that we didn't get quite to all of them. Definitely, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be able to send some of these questions to Dr. Mo. But thank you again for, your fabulous words. We're going to move now to our panelists. So I'm going to allow Dr. Kuria as well as Dr. Cully, two of our fantastic fellows who are moderating the next session, allow themselves to introduce themselves. Dr. Kuria and Dr. Cully, take it away.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I am Jerry Correa. I am a PGY6. I can't believe I'm saying that. Third year cardiology fellow. And through the ACC, I've actually been able to get a lot of help. I'm actually one of the inaugural members of the ACC Internal Medicine Cardiology program, where I was paired with Dr. Van Hurley, who became my mentor. And so being part of this is kind of my way of like giving back and being able to help others. Miranda, go ahead.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm originally from Ohio, but have been out here in California for internal medicine residency and cardiology training. I'm a second-year fellow, so just a little bit behind Dr. Correa. Thank you so much for putting messages in the chat. We'll continue to try to integrate those into some of our planned questions. And thank you to some of the faculty on board for responding to some of those questions, because I'm sure we won't have time to get to all of them. All right. And so I think it's time to let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves.
So we'll go in alphabetical order. So Dr. Day, Dr. Garg, Dr. Salahuddin, and Dr. Svetlana, go ahead and give us a one-liner introduction and tell us a bit about yourselves.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry I have a really bad cold, so I've lost my voice, but I'll try to do my best. I'm actually a scientist. I'm a PhD scientist, and I work at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. I'm a professor, and I went into the cardiology field because I wanted to make a difference. So it so happened my father had almost a sudden cardiac death. He had a massive heart attack, and while he was working, so he still walked to work. And this was in Brazil. Okay. He was for a 1 year post in Brazil as a scientist. And in that, and right after this happened, he walked to work. And then they hospitalized him right away. And he had a 4 bypass surgery. And then, and even like there was a huge clot. They had to take it, they had to cut the myocardium and take it out. So he just survived, like, he had maybe like 1% chance of surviving, and he survived that. And then he survived that time, and with the help of medication, and he lived 25 years after he saw my kids. He spent time with them. So I wanted to be in something that um, a field where something can be done even when there's such a small chance of survival. And also, I work a lot in research and teaching and actually the AI service at our hospital. So we have this motto, every patient counts. I know that's the motto of all doctors, but in our research, we also have this. So just to kind of give you an overview, um, now I think, was there as a list of questions, right, that was sent to me?
We're going to start with just the introductions, Dr. Day, and then
Okay.
we'll go into the questions.
Okay,
That's
so
okay.
that's good. So this is my introduction. I'm a professor, and I work a lot with quantitative CT and AI at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. And one of our goals is to predict actually heart attack from quantitative imaging.
Wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Garg, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Venetia Garg. Thanks for having me, inviting me. I'm happy to be here. I'm an interventional cardiologist at Loma Linda University. I grew up in Southern California, did my college and medical school in New York, and then I did my internal medicine, cardiology, and interventional cardiology training at UCLA, and then joined Loma Linda faculty in 2019. And I've been here since then and have kind of a diverse practice where I do interventional cardiology. I do a lot of cardio oncology and do a lot of inpatient and outpatient kind of general cardiology. And then I'm also involved a lot with the with teaching and with the cardiology fellowship at Loma Linda.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Garg. Dr. Salahuddin, I'm sorry if I'm not saying your name correctly, but go ahead.
No, that's pretty close to being correct. Thank you so much. I'm Aisha Salahuddin. I'm an adult congenital heart disease specialist at UCSF. I did my fellowship in New York at Einstein Montefiore, and then took a little break, and I worked as an ACL faculty at Rutgers, and then decided to come back into ACHD, into the field of ACHD. The other hats I wear is that I continue to work in the echo lab. And then I also do quite a bit of cardio obstructives at UCSF, which has become very near and dear to my heart. So happy to be a part of this panel.
Amazing. Thank you. And Dr. Slatjana?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Yana Svetlichnaya. I'm currently at Kaiser San Francisco. I'm an advanced heart failure, pulmonary hypertension cardiologist. The program says I'm EP, but sorry to disappoint. I'm advanced heart failure and PH. I did my fellowship training at UCSF and my med school and residency in Chicago at Northwestern. I'm very happy to be here. Yeah, and my current job, I'm the director of the coronary care unit, the CCU at Kaiser SF. I run the shock team, and I also do a lot of teaching for the residents and the fellows. And then I do quite a bit of clinical research in heart failure as well. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Day kind of got us started with our first planned question, which is really why you chose, to enter the field of cardiology, and maybe if Dr. Day has additional add-ins, or our other panelists could talk a little bit about why cardiology. I know Dr. Mo elaborated on all of these pivotal moments that bring you to where you end up. But especially for those of you who have subspecialty interests, maybe explaining what your subspecialty is for some of our younger panelists, and maybe what really brought you to that decision.
I can start. I think like Dr. Mo, I had quite a few, career paths in my life, and for the longest time, I wanted to do oncology actually, and I was kind of on the road to being an oncologist. And then I did my first rotation in the ICU, the cardiac ICU, and I was just so blown away by like the physiology at the bedside, and Swan-Ganz catheters, and how you could really make such small changes in some of the medications, devices, and really see patients improve. And I guess a highly scientific person, so I think being at the bedside and like seeing like changing things, and then seeing the effect of that, and seeing patients get better. So I mean, for me, I think it was a really my kind of career changing trajectory. And as a second year resident, I kind of decided to do cardiology, and have never looked back. Advanced heart failure is a subspecialty of cardiology. And back when I was in training, if you really wanted to do like critical care cardiology and be in the ICU, that was probably one of the best career paths to do. Currently, you can kind of talk about it. There's also critical care cardiology, so that actually that's not advanced heart failure and transplant, and it basically is also subspecialty training, but just being in the intensive care unit and taking care of critically ill patients. So I think if I had to do my career training again, I probably would have kind of chosen that field. But I think I just wanted to kind of talk about what excites me, and I think also just emphasize that it's okay to have a career path and kind of think to know what you want to do, but then get really excited about something else. And for me, it was really about the physiology at the bedside.
So I talked a little bit about why I am in cardiology particularly, but I will also say why I'm in cardiac imaging. So we kind of are cartographers of the invisible disease. So, one of my key areas of research, and actually it's kind of um, clinically used actually at our institution and other places, is to measure the plaque in the coronary arteries and try to quantify the level of atherosclerosis, and how you can actually, and a very hot topic in this area is to actually look at the atherosclerosis, which is the root cause of stenosis. So that's one of the reasons why we started to look at coronary CT angiography, which is a standard um, imaging test in chest pain. And there's so much more information in these images that can be helped to guide the patient's management further.
All right. I can comment too. So for me, kind of very similarly uh, to others, I was really interested in cardiac physiology throughout kind of education, and cardiology just intrigued me because of how many different options there are once you go into cardiology. As you can see, how many subspecialists that there are, and during residency, I had a lot of experiences during my cardiac rotations where patients were acutely sick, and we performed an intervention like putting in a pacing wire or putting in a stent, and the patients kind of acutely got better. And so during training, I realized that I was very procedure oriented. So I knew that I really wanted to go into a field that had procedures. And so cardiology was a great fit for me. And then interventional cardiology really fit kind of what my interests and passion was.
Um, for me, I think the first part why choosing cardiology was a little bit more simpler because, as a lot of members in the panel have alluded to, and Dr. Mo, the physiology of the heart actually really excited me. So I think in the very beginning of the career of my internal medicine journey, I knew that cardiology is going to be something that I would do. I think for me, the choosing the subspecialty part was a little bit more adventurous because when I started, I thought, and I had my research in echocardiography, and I thought I was going to be an imager, and that's it. Until I got to introduced to the field of adult congenital heart disease, and for some of the younger folks on our attending today, these are adults who were born with congenital heart with some sort of a heart problem, have undergone several surgeries, procedures, and now they're surviving into hood, and they need doctors because they're gonna congenital heart disease is never cured. It can be fixed temporarily, but they always live with some disease and could potentially have complications. Um, so this was a field which was I honestly got introduced to it when I became a fellow. So as you can see that there's not a lot of information around about it out there. So it seemed like a very unknown territory and with a lot of opportunity to explore. And then as I went through my fellowship, I realized that cardiac hemodynamics and imaging were the two things I liked, and a lot of it is in ACHD. And I think the last piece of it, which also attracted me to, last two pieces, actually, one of them was the cohort of patients that you see typically in your cardiology clinic. You would probably be seeing a patients who are a little bit older, but the patients that we see in our clinic or I see in my clinic are going through their formative years of life. Some of them are transitioning from from teenagers to young adulthood. So it was actually it's very rewarding being a part of their formative years of life when they're, going through school, colleges, getting married, getting jobs, things like that. And the last one is also a very, very inspiring mentor. I think I got a mentor who was a great teacher, who was an congenital cardiologist, and I think that sort of sealed the deal for me.
Well, that's incredible. Thank you to all our panelists. To kind of go off a little bit about what Dr. Salahuddin said, our adult congenital heart patients are a different patient population than most of our cardiac patients, seeing that, they know that they will never completely be cured. And knowing that, Dr. Salahuddin, what do you think makes what you do the best part of your job, but also kind of the harder part to deal with, knowing that, they are not curable and they will likely always either need to see you or need other procedures later on in life?
I think just going like thank you for that question. I think the best part again is basically getting them to through these challenges in their young adulthood. And remember, these patients who were born and their parents were told that they might not survive beyond their first year of life or 5 years or 10 years, and now they're in their 30s and 40s. And some of these surgeries which were just started in the 1970s. So this is the first cohort of people who are living through their 50s and going into their 60s. So nobody knows what's coming next. So I think that's very exciting. So I think as physicians of those patients and as those patients themselves, each another year they have in their life and each milestone they reach, they just cherish it a lot more than most of us would who have been blessed with normal bodies and normal hearts. So I think each milestone they get, they enjoy it and cherish it a lot more, and so do we. So it's very exciting to have a woman who has and recommend her to surgery and walk her through surgery and then let her have her baby, or to with the focus of that she's going to get pregnant and have her babies, things like that. Or a person who's going to take a semester off or delay their graduation program, their professional degree, just because they can have their procedure so they can go out into the world like a healthy person for the next whatever number of years they are in. I think the sad part obviously is the other side of it. We are also the physicians, we are going to lose our patients. We're going to lose them young. Within the last 6 months, I have lost a 21-year-old who I took care of for more than a year. I've also lost a 37-year-old who I took care of during her pregnancy and during her surgery too. So it honestly takes a mental toll on us too. And I think that's the other part of it. And one more aspect which has become very important overall, and I think there's more recognition to it, which about it, which I'm very glad about, is that these individuals, since they have been in and out of hospitals, they have missed schools, they have missed activities, they have not been with their peers. So they are also carrying a lot of mental and psychological burden. So mental health has become a big issue for them and also often becomes a big barrier for them too. So I think that's a challenging piece. We don't have a lot of professionals in general, and we definitely don't have a lot of professionals who are dedicated to take care of this. And I'm talking about starting from social work to counselors to therapists to everybody. So I think that's another challenging part with this cohort. So basically, every clinic visit or a follow-up visit, and it's not just going through their checklist of medical problems, is also kind of sort of going through their mental and psychological health and what are they going through, which is also true for other patients too, but a little bit more, seen a little bit more in this particular field. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you so much for your honesty. And I also, if any of our other panelists have, insights into, the favorite part of their job, but also the hardest part of their job, I think it's super helpful for trainees at every level, including me now, just to hear your insights. So I want to leave space for that, as well as think about the next question, which is really talking about, in your experience, what was maybe one barrier or some of the barriers that you faced in your training path, and how did you overcome those things? Open to anyone.
I can go. Oh yeah, Manisha, go ahead.
No, no, you can go ahead.
I think this is just probably relevant to myself. And I think for being a foreign medical graduate, so your journey becomes a little bit longer because you're dealing with barriers which people who are nationals over here or who are in American institutions might not face. So that was the initial part of my career. And I think the other barrier was when you pivot from one thing to the other, or when you take breaks, like or gaps, As I said, I thought that I was going to be an echocardiographer and be a faculty member, and then I plunged back into a fellowship, knowing that I'm going to be not paid as much for the next 2 years. And by that time, I also have two kids and a husband, and we are moving from cross country. I think that was the other challenging part. And it's not I don't consider it a challenge, but there was a question earlier in the chat about having kids. I had both my kids during cardiology fellowship. So I think those were tough years. I had a great group of people. I was a part of a village, so that actually helped a lot. So I think those were the major ones that I can think of as not necessarily barriers. Some of them are barriers, but the other ones were challenges that to get over or get through. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for everyone that goes into any field in cardiology, I think training is just it's so long. It's kind of inevitable that you're going to have at some point either personal or professional challenges. I mean, for me in particular, I think interventional cardiology is it's long, it's competitive, and then there's a very steep learning curve, and sometimes the expectations can be very challenging in terms of what's expected during procedures, what's expected afterwards, the call schedules. I think all of that can be challenging both personally and professionally. And I think it's just important in whatever field that you pick that you keep kind of reminding yourself why it is that you chose that particular field and really stay connected to kind of mentors or colleagues that are going through things that are similar as you who can understand the demands of the field. And I think that helps you overcome some of these barriers.
I think for me, a very practical barrier was between 4 and 6 p.m. every single workday, because that's when I had to pick up my kids. I had to, like, finish all the meetings or take them from the car. It was really, really difficult. Um, and my husband is very helpful. That's I agree with the previous speakers, but he always had to stay at work because their workday is ends later, so it was very difficult. But my kids are grown up now, so they take the bus home. It's not a problem.
All right. Some of kind of putting together some of the questions in the chat. I think some of those who are still in high school and undergraduate training are looking for some advice on how to prepare for, going to medical school and residency. And in particular, kind of speaking to what Dr. Garg says, such a long training path. And maybe some recommendations on financial assistance, and maybe how you've navigated that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I mean, yes, obviously it's a long road. So I think um, kind of looking back, at least for me from high school, it seems like extremely long ago. But I think persistence is really what matters more than speed. This is not something that is overnight. You're not going to achieve anything overnight. This takes time. And so it's important to really enjoy the process of it. And like others have said today, there's not only one route to medicine. Everybody has their own route to get to medicine. I think as long as you kind of stay dedicated to who you are, true to what your passion is, what your interests are, you'll achieve your goal. You just need to find the route that fits you. And ultimately, when you do get there, if it is to be a cardiologist, you'll be stronger, you'll be more competent because of the route that you've chosen. So I think that it's important to just realize that there's not only one path that's kind of carved out. You can follow any route to get to get to being a doctor, get to being a cardiologist.
Totally agree with that. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I think just advice for high school. I remember, I mean, just try to get as many opportunities as you can to like expose yourself either through volunteering or maybe doing some like summer research work in a lab. I did all of those. I remember in high school in Chicago, walking to like a little community hospital with my best friend. Both of us thought we wanted to be doctors, and we would just go like through the floors and hand out magazines and whatever those little volunteer cards had. And I mean, actually thinking back on that experience, I think it was really great because it you kind of get to see what it's like being in the hospital, and whether it's something that makes you happy. For me, I was very fortunate. I even when I moved from Chicago, where I felt very comfortable, I'd been a med student, a resident, the hospital is there, and then I matched at UCSF, and I was delighted. I was just, it was my number one choice, and I was so happy. But I also didn't know like a single person in San Francisco well, so it definitely was scary to move like across the country, across, coming from a training program where I was known and liked, and going to a very kind of academic, intimidating environment and having to prove myself, and also doing it in the most expensive city probably in the US, which is why I'm bringing it up. I think for me, like that was kind of a barrier that I had to overcome. And the good news is once you're, like a resident or a fellow, you can moonlight on the weekend. And I did a lot of that actually. And that's kind of how I got to know the hospital like really well too. So I guess just kind of try to look for, every opportunity you can to get other experiences within medicine, whether that's through volunteering, research opportunities, or even moonlighting.
I think I would echo what Jana and Venetia have said, that early exposure is pretty good, whatever opportunity you get, because you might find that something you thought you liked is not something you actually like. Dr. Mo's his journey as a test alluded to that quite a bit. And then honestly, when I was in med school, I thought I was going to go into surgery, but when I went through my surgical rotation, I realized no, it's not that. But so earlier exposure, even at high school level and everything, and I think some of the practical things, and reach out to your counselors, your guidance counselors, and everybody earlier on, and think about openly speak with them about your barrier, whether it's a financial barrier, whether it's a family barrier or whatever, and then look at the geography of the country where you want to be, where you could, let's say if you cannot afford to live in a very, very expensive city or something, maybe you should focus on the areas which are more affordable to live in. But that also gives you an opportunity to go to good school because the entire country has opportunities, so things like that. Or you might, let's say, if you're choosing something which is like a little bit later in career and you have other responsibilities, for example, kids, you might want to stay closer to your family or friends or, your group. So some of those practical things, so start thinking about them earlier on and reach out to your mentors and guidance counselors and earlier on to carve a path there.
Okay, our next question from the audience is, and this can be for any one of you to answer, how do you intentionally make time for healthy balance in your life outside of cardiology for your overall wellness? Dr. Garg is one of my attending, so I'm just gonna ask her to go first.
Right. I think so. It's very very important to kind of balance your personal and professional life, but also to kind of keep yourself sane. Essentially, it's important to have hobbies. I think that's kind of one of the biggest things, and everybody has different hobbies, but whatever hobby that keeps you interested, like for me, like on a weekend, if I have time, I actually like to build things. And so I think if you have a hobby that kind of keeps you occupied, something that you can look forward to if you've had a super stressful week, I think it's something to help decompress. And it could even be just even family or talking to family or meeting with family. Anything that kind of helps you decompress, I think is very important to find what makes you happy that's outside of work.
Yes, I agree. And I think for me, it's important to be in nature. So whether it's just for a walk, a hike, biking, anything like that, that really takes the stress off and gives you some exercise. At least at the end of the week, you have a chance to like balance out the stress of the week.
Wonderful. And since we're kind of talking about balance, another question in the chat is, what personal philosophies helped each of you stay grounded or resilient through patient outcomes?
I mean, for me, I was kind of fortunate to be in where my family is actually in medicine too and in healthcare. So a lot of them kind of understand and are going through similar things. My sister is also a doctor, and we went through training at the same time. And so I think dealing with some of the hardships that come with some of the more emotionally stressful parts of our job, I think it was important to find somebody to lean on. And so I think for me, it was my sister and my family that kind of helped me get through a lot of that.
I think there's a question about community in the chat, and I think your co-fellows, as I'm sure the fellows on this call and all of the former fellows can attest, your co-fellows. So the people who are kind of going through it with you can really become your family and be a great support system. And I know that was the case, for me. I think, we had a very close-knit class, and you'll have difficult situations with attendings, with patients, with just life in the hospital. It's a high stressful environment, and I think having people to lean on is really it is really important. So definitely look for, when you're going through your training, look for a place that feels like it could give you that level of community and support.
And I think I would also add to this that I think in every either it's workplace or even home, I think it's hard, but we need to be realistic with our expectations. For example, you're never going to be able to please everybody. Things are not always going to go well, and there are going to be several ways to get to the same goal. Your way might be different than your colleague's way, or so the expectation should be that no matter how well you plan for things, something might fall apart, or and on the other end, something might turn out much better than you were expecting, and might surprise you. So I think when you start with a reasonable expectation, you are less likely to get disappointed or disheartened. I think that has worked for me.
Oh, I love these last two questions in the chat. What do you like most about your career, or what are maybe one or two experiences that have really reaffirmed your choice, and kept you going as you've trained, and as you do your day-to-day job? We can start with Dr. Stekletnaya, just to put you on the spot. You're okay.
Yeah, I mean, these questions, I have to say, I'm very impressed with the level and the complexity of the questions. I actually was thinking to myself, I don't know if I would have asked that if I was when I was in high school. So, great question. I think, for me, it's really, I've always been lucky where I've always felt like the hospital was kind of my grounding place. So even when life was crazy or I had some, stuff going on in my personal life, I was always, whenever I went, to work and was in the hospital, was taking care of patients, I've always felt very grounded and very comfortable. And I don't know, it's always kind of been my happy place. I know that sounds maybe like weird and kind of sad, but I think I really enjoy talking to people. I really enjoy, kind of I think it's definitely a privilege that we get to take care of patients when they're at their most vulnerable. Sometimes, I kind of like walk into a patient's room and I can immediately tell, okay, this family, hasn't been happy with their care or going to be a little bit intense. And I think like having the power to like turn that conversation around and having people trust you at the end. I mean, that's kind of what really you kind of feel that trust in you. And like that's really what actually gets me through the day. And that's kind of what gives me the motivation to come back and kind of do it day in and day out is that I just really value that patient physician relationship. So not sure if that answers it completely, but that's kind of the best I can do on the spot.
For me, I think there's maybe like a couple things that I really enjoy. I mean, I think from my like from doing interventional cardiology, I think that uh, seeing really sick patients kind of stabilize right during an intervention, it's really gratifying to see that, and I think that's kind of unmatched in a lot of other fields in medicine, to see people who come in so critically sick and then actually walk out of the hospital. And so I think that every time that I am waking up at 2 a.m. to go in to do a STEMI, I'm not always happy, but then when I see that the patients do well right after and they get kind of immediate relief in their symptoms, it always kind of reaffirms my choice in medicine. And then the other part that I really, really enjoy is that I'm actually working with the cardiology fellows. I think that working with the fellows, seeing them grow, seeing their interest, and kind of inspiring them is something that I think is for me, it's such a big part of my career, and it really gives my own career meaning, and it's really nice to see them grow, and then also kind of what they achieve after they've graduated and started their own practices.
Well, thank you both for sharing that. There's a great question in the chat to kind of follow up on what you both said about, your experiences with patients. So this question is, I'm hearing a lot of humanity in everyone's stories. what are some specific patient experiences or other experiences throughout training and attending hood that confirm that you chose the right path? I think Dr. Gar kind of talked about that a little bit, but maybe the rest of the panelists can kind of talk about, experiences they had that confirmed that this was the right path that they chose.
I think sort of one of the things that I often think about is that I sometimes think about the worst day in my week or in a month that um, if I still want to go back and do the same thing even on the worst day or the hardest day, then this is something which is my path. It's my calling. So I think it's always easier to choose something or say happy about when things are going well. It's when the things are not going well or not according to your plan. Those are the days which really make you question something. So I think that's sort of my litmus test that I use. That if I still want to get up the next day and go to and do the same job with the hope that it's going to get better, tomorrow is going to be better, then I'm in the right field. And I think there was one other question that there was a question about patient experiences throughout the tearing and attending that confirmed the right path. So I think one of my I mean, there's several experiences, and I think all of us have had several experiences, and we might not even remember all of them right now. But I think in the very beginning, I was like an intern or maybe a second. I was an intern at that time, I think. I think was this experience with a young patient who was dying of liver cirrhosis, and he was being given a lot of hope about a potential liver transplant, and I knew, and we all knew at the end of the day that that's not a possibility. The issue or the problem, or not exactly the problem, but I think everybody was sort of not being was too afraid to communicate to the family, and me being probably very naive, I just kind of went to the patient's mother and told her that yes, we are exploring all of these options, but quite honestly, this is he doesn't meet criteria, and at the end of the day, it's just not a possibility. And now in hindsight, I think that was probably my naivete that I said that to her and at that part of but it's funny that the patient eventually passed away, and then a few months later, the CEO of the hospital got a letter from this patient's mother, and she actually named me and one of the other nurses and thanking us for being authentic and being truthful and not glossing over the details or sugarcoating it. So she actually appreciated that authenticity and truthfulness and named us specifically about, regarding that. So I think that experience kind of like really humbled me and also sort of made me realize that when patients come and see you, they are expecting you to be very authentic, very truthful to them, and you really should. They want you to be their advocates because they're really, really, relying on that. So I think that was actually one of the experiences that I remember, but I'm pretty sure there's several others, and you guys can chime in.
I think we're going to go to our next question. This one's from a high school student, and it has a lot of weight to it, but it's an excellent question. How do you cope with the amount of deaths that happen around you? And is there anything that helps not think about all the death and get over hard days during work? And what advice do you have to cope? Because it is not a normal thing that people in the medical field experience often. I think what this question is really asking is, how do we all deal with the deaths that we deal with, whether that's in the CCU or a patient that you've followed for a long time in clinic. I think either one of you can answer that question.
So it's an excellent question, and I think definitely don't have the answer. I do a lot of PH, pulmonary hypertension, so a lot of my patients are young, and even though the treatments, have evolved, some of them, have died over the years, and some of them were quite young. I remember two patients in particular. One of whom was pregnant, and that was just a heartbreaking situation that I still kind of think about, and it still weighs on me. It's still something that I don't think I'll ever let go of that particular patient outcome. I think I've been invited, I mean, asked to come to some of my patients' funerals, and I think it's felt very challenging because you do have that relationship, sometimes for years, and you are such an important part of their life and their trajectory, and everybody, their parents, their spouses, their kids, they kind of know who you are. But there's also this tremendous amount of internal self-questioning and kind of guilt, and was there anything I could have done differently? And I always it's always it does take a lot out of me to to go to funerals and to see, I mean, it's kind of beautiful to see the patient's life, and kind of in a different way, in a different lens. But it also, I think you have to acknowledge that that there is this feeling, what could have been done differently. And it's not just you. I think the family has kind of that feeling towards you as well. So I think, I think just coming to work, trying to do your best every single day, obviously. Um, and just kind of being an advocate for patients, having that trust relationship with the patient and their family is really important. But I think, yeah, I think it is something that we all probably struggle with, and I don't have the answer still, but I think it's a great question.
All right. Thank you so much for all your honesty and vulnerability and the great questions. Keep them coming. It looks like um, there's some questions around how do you how have you broken through some of the self-doubt that comes from this training path, whether in research or in clinical work? And I think there was a question a little bit further back of kind of what are some of the skills that have maybe helped you break through that self-doubt that you developed in high school, undergrad, and medical training?
I think um, m- medicine, cardiology is it's very complex, and I, nobody knows everything. Like no matter how many years you've been in the field, no matter how much experience you have, you don't know everything, and you never will know everything. So it's constantly something that requires learning. And I think that if you kind of look around and see, everybody really has. I don't know if it's self-doubt, but self-questioning, making sure that is the decision that I'm making the right decision. You want to do what's best for your patient, and so you always want to make sure that what you're doing is the correct or the best route. And so I think that seeking guidance from other people. I mean, if you kind of once you're in medicine and you'll see that everybody really asks each other questions. I think it tends to be a very collegial environment, and so everybody has the same feelings of self-doubt and wondering to make sure if what you're doing is the right decision. So I think as if you ask other people and use guidance and kind of use other resources like online resources and really discuss with people, I think that helps you kind of get through a lot of those challenges that you might face, so that you feel more confident. But if again, even in interventional cardiology, I see it all the time. I mean, it's not just for women and it's not just for men. Everybody always asks, hey, look at this case. Is this something that you would have done? Everybody has the same questions. And so I think it's good to realize that you're not the only one. Everybody is the same. So asking others will just help you move forward and progress.
Yeah, I agree. I think the medicine is so special because it's so humbling. I mean, there's still cases. We just had a case, and Vinicius is probably gonna like it, but there's probably 10 cardiologists in the room, and we all said, this is like scat. This is a 41-year-old woman. This is like 99%, LED blockages, spontaneous coronary artery dissection, which is treated differently than atherosclerosis, and she was managed as such, and she came back a month later, and it turned out that it wasn't SCAD, it was actually coronary atherosclerosis, and she'd gotten CT imaging and a lot of that. But I think all of us were so humbled because because I think there's still cases where we kind of all think this is X, but it turns out to be Y. And I think so I think that's why anybody who walks into the room and tells you for sure this is what this is, I mean, just doesn't have that experience. And I think that's actually part of the reason why I love being a cardiologist and working in a kind of a place like Kaiser, where we have specialists from all over the world. We have all over the country, but but definitely like experts, and we all do sit around in a room and talk about these cases. And I think getting input from colleagues does tell you that yes, there is a lot of uncertainty, and the more you learn, the more you practice medicine, the more you realize is that there's always a possibility that you're wrong. And I think being in the ICU, my job is really to teach the residents and the fellows how to plan for that, for that other possibility, how to always think about every kind of trajectory that the patient could take. And I think I think, yeah, a medicine is very, very humbling. And that's part of the reason why, what I still find so rewarding about it.
I would just say a couple of things that, as everybody else was alluding to, I think a healthy amount of self-doubt is actually important to have, because that's how you become a learner, and you're a lifelong learner in medicine and a lot of other fields too. But so I think that it's okay to have that. And also, actually, you'll be surprised when you ask other people, they're more willing to help you and answer your questions than you would think they might be. They actually feel honored. They feel like they're a part of the process. And it's always a two-way street, because they might actually learn something from you, and vice versa. So never be afraid to ask questions, and self-doubt is healthy. That's how I approach it.
To combine some of the other questions, there was a specific question on how to get engaged in research, which is important not only if you plan to stay in research lifelong, but really for any area of medicine. So maybe we can start with Dr. Day on some advice on how to get into research. And then I think that also segues nicely into the mentee-mentor relationship. What are some of the qualities that you all look for in mentees to help us all be better at that and get the most out of those relationships?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think that it's good to start very early and very simply. Do a summer internship, for example. And then you'll know if you like research or don't like research, because you have to like it. Research is kind of a lot of long hours of analyzing images and data for us. But other writing papers and writing abstracts, and it's not easy. So you have to feel happy about it. I think that's the easiest answer. You have to realize that, is this my thing or is it not? And being the mentee-mentor relationship, I can maybe say a couple of words is that um, if you go to a lab and you feel that you're happy and you're challenged every day, and you have a task to do, and you feel that, oh, I can do this, I can learn something, and um, that's where you found your ideal place for as a mentee. And as a mentor, what we try to do is we like to find a project which fits the mentee's interests, as well as the lab uh, priorities and grants. So, so it's kind of goes both ways, that you have to kind of meet in that middle ground. I hope that's answers the question. But yeah, so I think also it's important to do do have lab meetings and one-on-one meetings, so you don't feel left out.
Thank you so much. And for the rest of the panel, if there's any advice on, mentorship, how to be a good mentee, how to find your mentors. I know Dr. Mo talked about how some of it is organic, but when you haven't gotten to medical school yet, some of that feels a little unattainable. So if there's any advice on how to reach out, who to reach out to, I know this is a great forum to start that process. So any advice from the rest of the panelists as well.
Yeah, at Kaiser, we've definitely had some high school students come and rotate with us here during the summer, do some, research stuff, and have, some of them have been very successful. So please, reach out. I'm happy to try and find opportunities, if your geographical location permits that. I think I totally agree with Dr. Day. Do summer internships, just find a lab, I can't remember how. I think when I was in training, there was like an official program, like a research program that I signed up for, and I worked in a pediatric neuroscience mouse lab. And I mean, of course, it's nothing like what I'm doing, now, but I think it definitely helped me to make some connections and to kind of see, see what it's like, and it looks good on your CV. So I think just, whatever you can find, whatever opportunities you can identify, go for it. And then, advice on being a good mentee, just be hardworking, be on time. Your mentor is probably mentoring a lot of other people. And I think if you're not, if you're not coming to the meetings, if you're not doing, kind of the tasks that are assigned that can really, strain the relationship, and things are busy, so definitely take on only projects that you can handle. But once you've committed to something, just do it to the best of your ability. And if you're struggling, reach out early. I think sometimes I found that residents kind of feel overwhelmed and they can't do like a paper on time, and I'd rather them have me let me know early so that I can help them, rather than have it beat the deadline and not have completed the work. So so take on things that you can handle, and once you've committed to a project, go dedicate yourself to getting it done on time or earlier.
Well, that is excellent advice. What do you think makes a really good mentee, outside of, meeting deadlines? Anything else that you particularly look for when taking on a new mentee?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely showing commitment goes a very long way. So I think showing that, not just saying that you're interested, but actually demonstrating that, and that I think makes the biggest impact. So, and that means kind of being timely in whatever task that is requested. If there's any kind of project going over and above, so that means looking things up, researching things on your own that may not be 100% what the question was asked, but you're doing more. And then when you come and present or discuss, you now have even more knowledge. And it's obvious in the interaction that you've done more research than what was asked. And so I think that goes a long way. That really demonstrates commitment, and it really makes you stand out compared to other people. And that's really, really what you need. And you'd be surprised how small. Medicine seems like a really big field, but you'd be surprised how small the field of medicine actually is and how many people know other people. And so making a big difference in the eyes of one person can impact your future path moving forward. So you always want to aim to impress, and that will get you moving forward.
Yes, I completely agree with that, as well. It's been surprising how many times I've come across former trainees or, people who have mentored me. And, I think you'll see people over and over again. So work on, building the relationships and making sure that they're good relationships, that you make a positive impression on every single person that you meet. I know that sounds daunting, but I think, just to do your best. And I think whenever you're a meeting with a potential mentor, it's nice to know something about them. I know that I kind of react when somebody says, well, I've read, this, or, I know this about you, and this is why I'd like to work with you. So definitely do your research and know something about the person that you're meeting with, and have kind of an elevator pitch as to why you want to work with them. And I think that kind of really can set the relationship off on a good start.
I would say one thing that, and I think it was mentioned earlier too, that particularly when you're choosing something like this, uh, it's easy to say yes to a lot of things in the beginning and then fall short. And sometimes that comes out of, you're just desperate to find a mentor or impress a mentor, but it's absolutely okay to pick a few things and do them well. And you can actually be very open to your mentor about it too. That, hey, I can do this by this time, but I won't be able to achieve this, and that's absolutely fine. It would be worse to not to not say that in the beginning and not fall and then not achieve, because that would be disappointing for you as well as your mentor. So just take on whatever you can comfortably, and then just try to excel at that. Um,
All right, it looks like we have time for just one last question. And this last question is from a high school student. So they're wondering if there's any book recommendations for high school students about cardiology, or even just books that inspired each one of you to continue down this path.
I mean, I actually don't have, I can't recall any specific book, but I was just looking at the chat. I think there were a bunch of really good book suggestions that some people found helpful kind of through their career path.
Been looking at the chat too, and I'm definitely inspired to read a lot of the books, but I agree. I have to commute about an hour each way, so I'm listening to audiobooks a lot, and I don't know, I try to make them less educational and more just, just to take the edge off. So I don't have any specific recommendations, but I am inspired to listen to some of these.
I think not particularly. I don't know. I can't say that they're specific for the high school level of training, but as Jana was mentioning, that they were not particularly specifics to medicine, but some of them were just like workplace related, books, how to communicate better, conflict resolution and stuff like that. And just like that, I also listened to audiobooks, like shifted from reading to listening because of time constraint. But I think that there are definitely some that I can put in the chat, but they're not particularly specific to medicine or the pre-medicine periods of your life. Um, and I
There is a science book that I can really recommend, and I put that in the chat. And I'm going to try to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So the best advice, which I always give this to my mentors, to my mentees when they start out in my lab, is that, if you have to focus on what you can do and what you can change. So those tasks, just keep that focus, and it will never lead you astray. This is a really amazing book. I read it many times. I have it on my Kindle. I have it on audiobook. It's an amazing life story, and the science of also story about her science um, with the mRNA vaccines for COVID.
I've read that too. Actually, yeah, it's a pretty good book. Yeah.
Thank you to all of our panelists. We are going to go into a quick break before we hear from our next two speakers. Thank you all for your advice and your time. I know you are all very busy, and so we're so grateful for the opportunity to hear from each one of you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you to our fantastic moderators, Dr. Cully and Dr. Curia, for helping field all those questions. And really a lot of great, questions, a lot of great experiences that have shared and advice. So I think that's a great session. We're going to take a really short break and then come back. We're going to talk to two leaders of ACC, Dr. and Doctors Hilliard, around 10:56. So the shortest of breaks. And they can delve more into their experiences in cardiology and in particular in leadership positions as well. So stay tuned, okay? Don't go too far. Speaking of Dr. Rana, Dr. Hilliard, do either of you have any here?
I'm again, I'm here.
Hey, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate it.
Or I see a stranger over here today, famous Dr. Hilliard.
I was going to say the same thing about you, Jamal. Famous Dr. Rana.
Gonna give them just like another minute or two. Um, I was gonna start with you, Dr. That's all
I see
right.
the famous doctor here, Dr. Parvani. What's going on?
It's so nice to see both of you. I don't get to see you. So while this is a break, I think we can hopefully speak. Megan, it's okay?
Go for it.
No, it's been really good. Thank you both for joining us. Megan has done a fantastic job of organizing everything. And so far, we have had a fantastic morning.
I mean, the audience is all high school students.
We have a mixture of high school, undergraduate, residents.
Okay,
Everyone
cool.
showed up. So
Okay, good. No, it's a big crowd. I mean, a good way, yes. Yeah. Is the format Q&A or we just speak for 10 minutes? I have no slides.
it's okay. Just speak about your experiences for, roughly 10 minutes or so. Definitely, if there's any questions in the audience, I'm more than happy to field it. We're going to go afterwards to breakout sessions. And so they have a little bit more, and we would really love if you could stay for those. But it's a little bit more one-on-one time with attendees.
Sure.
Excellent. So, I think probably for the sake of time, hopefully people have gotten some fluids, gotten some food if they need to. I will start introducing our next fantastic speakers. Did you want to go first, Dr. Rana or Dr. Hilliard? Either way. Since you're on my screen, Dr. Rana, how about you go first?
I'll go first, yes.
Excellent. So I am to introduce Dr. Jamal Rana, MD, PhD, FACC. Dr. Rana completed a research at Harvard Medical School where he studied how risk factors like diabetes and obesity influenced heart disease, followed by cardiovascular training at Cedars Institute here in Los Angeles. He then joined Kaiser Permanente, becoming chief of cardiology at Kaiser Oakland, and serves as the chair of medical specialties at the Kaiser Permanente Oakland. He is also involved in national and state leadership and is a past president of the California ACC and former Northern California chapter governor as well. I've also had the personal privilege of being mentored by Dr. Ron through our state ACC organization, which has made work wonderful. The floor is yours, Dr. Ron.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Pelter. I'm just so thrilled to see your growth since we first met. And I mean, it's just so delightful. And thanks for having me. It's actually my privilege to be here today. I'm really impressed about how many folks, future women in cardiology have showed up on a Saturday. So it's a big deal for me. So I'll just share my personal story in a couple of minutes just to give a background. So I'm Jamal Rana. I grew up actually in Pakistan, and I had some family in Midwest growing up, so that was my sort of connection with the USA. And when I was 15, my dad had a major heart attack, and I was a teenager, I almost lost him, but thank goodness he survived. And I feel that that was part of the reason I became a cardiologist. It was not an easy road. I was fortunate to go to top med school in Pakistan, and then I came to Boston, did research for many years, got a PhD, and then I was in residency in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, UPMC. Then I came to Cedars-Sinai. And then once you're in California, you can never leave the California. So now I am in the Bay Area with Kaiser Permanente. And the reason I share it is that, it is a long road. And I just want to sort of make sure that you guys are prepared for that. And it can happen. If it can happen for somebody, an immigrant like myself, it can happen for all of you. So the topic today that was given to me and Dr. Hilliard is that, championing change, leadership lessons for aspiring physicians. So I think just to your presence here is start of a change. These days, 50% of medical students are females. I work in a teaching hospital, and most of my residents, actually 60-70% are actually women or females. So I think, but when you look at the statistics, we only have 15% in cardiology. So certainly there's a huge, huge desire for all of us in cardiology to have more of you be part of our community, part of cardiology family. Because clearly when we see patients, 50% are women. And as you know that heart disease is still the #1 cause of death in women. It's not actually breast cancer. So just having this session today is part of championing change and being here. So at your stage, what can you do? I think the one thing is this, so leadership is not only a title. You don't have to be the chair of the department or be chief of cardiology or chief resident. The leadership can happen as you look around yourself among the peers. Anywhere you feel that there's a gap and there's something that needs to happen, and you raise your hand and you start volunteering, you start sort of championing that cause. And then it's not so much about yourself, it's also about like raising the people around you. And people will naturally gravitate to you and they will see you as a natural leader. People are not born leaders, it's an acquired thing. You can, as you go along, and if you have the right sort of mindset of helping things, getting things done, you can start developing those leadership qualities as you go along. So there's never too late to start thinking that you can be a leader, and it's not about the title, it's the work you do, it's about the raising people around you. So that's #1, like just defining leadership and just realizing that you don't have to wait for a certain title. Certainly, I didn't come into cardiology to be a chief or chair or anything like that. My interest was seeing patients, and I had interest in research. But then one thing led to another, and having these sort of different hats, which I really enjoyed. It's not easy, but I'm Dr. Hilliard is actually a CEO now, and he can speak to more to that none of us sort of go to med school to be these leaders, but then our paths, there's bifurcation, you go this way or that way, and then you can gravitate towards two different things, and you hone your skills as you go along. So in terms of how you can start defining your course and your path. A lot of things happen. So for when me and Dr. Hilliard became the governors for California, it was the midst of COVID-19, and the world have changed, and we were like, how are we going to do anything? How are we going to keep people connected? So the upside was that now doing these Zooms and these Teams meeting is second nature to us. But at that time, it was very brand new. But then there was a lot of considered effort that happened that, okay, let's connect, let's stay connected. And then we were agile about inspiring people, getting a fantastic team like Dr. Pelter here, Dr. Pravani here. For me, the leadership it's not me, it's the team that we build around us. It's identifying the stars around you and giving them empowerment to make the things move forward. So for instance, if you need to find good mentors, it's always a trial and error. There's no guarantee that the first mentor you'll get is somebody who you can gel with. But at the same time, being a mentee is also a big responsibility. You have to take the initiative. Professors and senior people are very busy, but then they do recognize the stars. Like I recognize that in Dr. Pelter and Dr. Pravani and all these people who actually did such a fantastic work for California ACC that sort of made me and the whole chapter look so good. So you can start looking around and up and find the mentors, work closely with them. And then, mentors owe their mentees a lot too. And if you feel that it's not working out and you're not getting the attention, then you have the option to respectfully move on and look around and go somewhere else. So that's number one. Number two thing is this, that how do you define sort of success? Like, are you really moving forward? So what I would say is that you don't have to say yes to everything, but you should not say no to everything as you're starting off. But I think it's sort of, you should be introspective about it, that the things that you are going to say yes to, that I'm going to do this project or that project, then make sure you get it done. Because suddenly signing for 10 things and nothing gets done gives a sort of bad impression that, oh, this person didn't come through their work. I mean, obviously we have to study hard, we have to work, residencies, fellowships, family obligations. So moving forward, you always have to go above and beyond, but at least just be very cognizant of the things that you want to start that we can finish. And then other thing is this, that, if you're feeling burnout or if you're feeling it's too much, then just be very open about it. There's no sort of shame or sort of no, it's not, you're not losing anything, or it's not, you're not being like, hey, I'm a failure if there are times that you're going through these things. I've worked with, when I was California ACC president governor, there was this amazing star, and I spoke to her. I was like, hey, would you mind becoming part of this committee chair? And she's like, I just had a baby and this is a hard time for me. I'm not hard, like, she was busy. Let's wait 4 months later. And then we negotiated that. And 4 months later, there she was. And she did so well. So have that sort of awareness about yourself, what you want to do. And then as you sort of start going up, I mean, if you are a resident now, then you should be trying to help your interns. If you're an intern, you should try to be a role model for somebody in college. And if you're in college, undergrad, you should try to be a role model for somebody who's in high school. So I think it's very, very important that women in cardiology, females in cardiology also help each other and raise each other, because then they sort of understand even more visceral level that what the challenges are. And just remember that it's not about yourself, it's about the others as you go up. So I think I can feel more questions too. I think there is a lot of room, and I'm just really thrilled how Dr. Pelter herself has come up so much, and she always delivered. And this is the chance. I think all of you should definitely become members of California ACC and ACC. We have this open thing for medical students too. And I'm not sure if even high students can also become, but we are very, very open. And for myself, when I was a fellow at Cedars-Sinai, I became involved, and then I did not look back because I always found mentors and always found like a family or sort of sense of belonging to this professional society. So that would be the first step. I'll pause there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Dorana, for those inspiring words. Definitely, we can field some questions probably after Dr. Hilliard's portion as well, so we can combine them and get both of your perspectives, but definitely really enjoyed your talk. That was inspiring. So I am honored to introduce Dr. Anthony Hilliard, MD, FACC. Dr. Hilliard completed his cardiology and interventional cardiology fellowship at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota before returning home to Loma Linda, where he joined Loma Linda University Health as an interventional cardiologist. He then later became chief of cardiology. He recently transitioned into system-wide leadership and now serves as CEO of the LLU Health Hospitals. He is an active contributor to state national cardiology organizations and the past president of the California ACC and the former Southern California chapter governor. I've also been fortunate mentored by Dr. Hilliard as well through our state ACC organizations, and it is an honor to learn from and work closely with him. Dr. Hilliard, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Pelter. My sound seems a bit choppy from time to time, so if it is, just let me know. I already see a chat from Jamie, and I'm all in. Yeah, whoop whoop eat Mayo. So, I'm gonna take a step back and be a little bit philosophical, and I think it's important because there's a lot of boxes to check. There's T's to cross, and there's I's to dot. And as you are in various stages of your life journey and your career journey, I'd like to give you some lessons learned, not always learned well, but some lessons learned that I challenge you to apply in your own life. And I think that's important as we go through, your transitions, whether you're in high school, college, medical school, residency, etc. And that is to enjoy the journey. It's not about the end result. It's about the process, and it's about enjoying each step along the way, taking in what it is about that you're doing at that moment in time, and enjoying it, learning from it, and as you move forward, because life will be a series of accomplishments. You graduate, you go on, you get into a school of your choice, then you get into a program of your choice, then you get the job of your choice, and you find the spouse of your choice, and it goes on and on and on. And at the end, you might sit there and stand around and look and say, this isn't exactly what I thought it would look like, because you were focused on the end result and not enjoying the journey. I'll share a little bit about that in my own life. So I had very prescribed goals in life that I wanted to achieve. When I turned 40, which is where I was going to do this great reflection in my life about, did I reach my goals? I checked off the boxes. So on paper, it was a success. And I stood from that proverbial mountaintop, and it looked a little bit hazy. It wasn't crystal clear, and it wasn't celebratory, and it wasn't what I thought it should be like. Then I realized what it is I was doing, and I was working for and achieving goals that were set by others and not set by myself. And I think that's important. The narrative you choose, the journey you take, should be the journey of your own. You can take input from parents, from peers, from mentors, but at the end of the day, it's your life. And you have to take ownership of that and put your own imprint on what it is that you want to accomplish in your life, not what it is you think others want you to accomplish in your life, but what it is that you want to do. And as I think about it, and there was a statement I heard a few weeks ago that really resonated with me, and I want to challenge you to apply it in your own walk. And the first question is, where are you? It's an open-ended question. The answer is not really relevant to the moment, but where are you? And it goes on to say, you can control something. So let's talk about your life journey. You can control it. I did that very well. I accomplished what I thought I wanted to accomplish. But you can't control something and love something at the same time. It's an impossibility because control produces compliance. I checked the boxes in what I thought I was supposed to do in my life, but only freedom to create your own journey produces the love and satisfaction that you'll gain in your walk. And so to me, this is really important at our stages in development is you need to think about really what it is that you want to do, what it is that your journey looks like. Take data input from others, but make sure that what you're choosing, where you're choosing, what you're choosing to do is really what you want it to be and what you want to do. And then don't have an imposter syndrome. I can tell you, I never thought in a million years that I had any interest, desire, or skill set to be a health system CEO, have 20,000 employees. I mean, it's an imposter syndrome. I wake up and I say, I'm turning left, I should be turning right. And that's natural. But you have to recognize that people sometimes recognize skill sets that you may not see in yourself and be okay with that. But we'll all have imposter syndrome at some point in time or multiple times in your life. And I think that's okay. And why is that okay? Well, we have to be the goal in your life, the goal in your job journey, in your development is not to avoid making mistakes. That can't be why you're trying to do X. If I do X, I won't make mistake Y. No, in fact, the goal cannot be about avoiding mistakes. The goal needs to be to avoid standing still, to continue to evolve, to continue to grow and develop in your own walk. Mistakes are inevitable. They'll happen, and that's okay. I'll challenge you that the costliest mistakes, the invisible ones, are the ones you never take. I didn't think I was good enough to do this, so I took the other more easy path. And I would challenge all of you that the fact that you're here this morning, thinking and philosophizing about your career, asking questions about mentorship and what do I do with my volunteer hours, and you're already winning in the game of life. You are taking initiative in your own walk. Now, don't be fearful to be bold in it, and to let you be the one to decide which things you're going to do, and don't be fearful if you don't accomplish them. If you fall short of what you thought, that's okay. The worst move would be never to take it because of the fear of not making it. So I would challenge you every day to make sure it's the journey you want to be crafting, to own it, not to do what others think, to be compliant with someone else's goals. Choose your own goals because it's in that walk that you'll love what you do. Then at the end of the day, when you love what you do, it doesn't become work. It becomes a profession. It becomes an opportunity every day to transform lives, including your own. So that would be my challenge to you all.
Very well said, Dr. Hilliard. As well. Definitely, like you said, thinking outside of the box, breaking the formula to success definitely are ways to get what you truly want to do in life, as well as be able to experience life to its utmost level of fullness. So thank you both for joining us. I really appreciate all your words of wisdom. We have time for a couple of questions. I know there's some time restrictions as well. So if there's anyone in the audience that has any pressing questions, please feel free to ask. But I think one of the questions that did pop up mentioned, a lot of things about resilience, about self-doubt as well, which we all experience. And those can definitely start high school, college, so on and so forth. So what are some skills that high school students might be able to build that can help for a leadership roles in cardiology or in whatever medical specialty they decide to do? What are skills that they can develop
Sorry,
as a high school student?
sorry, we couldn't
Oh,
get Anthony, were you able to hear?
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's
You were dropping out there a
Oh,
bit.
I'm so sorry. Let me redo that. So, the question was, what skills should high school students develop now, or would you recommend that they develop now that can help them leaders in the field long term? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'll start with that. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Knowing your limitations, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses is really important. And it's natural. We tend to focus on what we do well in. And because that's the easy path for us. But for example, if you're, taking a science class, you're a liberal arts, you're a great writer, but you have college physics in front of you, and that this could be a challenge for you. I would encourage you to be proactive in that, recognizing that that's not necessarily your best talent, but it's a course you need to take and be proactive. So as a leader, the best thing I can do is sit and listen and ask for help and expertise from those around us. And so I think, to me, as you go through your walk, humanity in general wants to help people. They want others to succeed, and so I'd encourage you to ask for help.
Yeah, I can add, there was a question earlier about what books to read. At this stage, I wouldn't say you have to memorize Netter's anatomy and AI is coming, and there's a lot of this will be automated. But I think as physicians, the human touch will always be there. Post-pandemic, more and more patients want to be seen in person and not virtually. So our jobs, if anything, are safer than a lot of engineers' jobs. So one of the things which I've thought or felt that we were taught earlier in my life or in high schools or colleges was emotional intelligence. So there's a book by Daniel Goleman. It's called Emotional Intelligence. It's the word is out there for a long time, but I highly recommend that you guys read that because the future is the things that we used to call soft skills. In my mind, they're becoming hard skills, like how you interact with your peers, how you are a team player, how do you understand yourself, as Dr. Elliott said, and be not afraid of failure. I have failed in many things in my life, but just be persistent.
Well, that's great. I think since Megan's audio is chopping off, there is a common theme of a lot of questions that we are seeing is how do you balance your life? I know both of you. It's, you have such a busy life, but I also know the other side of it. Very, you've been blessed with very good family life and, you kind of keep everyone around you happy. So to speak to us what it takes to keep that balance in your life.
You want to go first? You're the big shot.
Yeah. Balance is a bit of a pretense. It's a journey without an end, I think. And there'll be peaks and valleys in that. Let's face it. If I'm getting ready for our budget season or you have finals in front of you, well, your world that week may look a little skewed. But rest assured, the sun will rise on a different day, and you'll have an opportunity to make sure that you have some self time. One of the things my mother, I often go back to what did my mother tell me? One of the best things, because I had imposter syndrome going to medical school. I was a religious studies and philosophy major, and I was sitting around with a bunch of science geeks. And they were talking about all the different classes they took, and I just took the basic ones to get into medical school. And I felt like I was going to need to study continuously to catch up. And that's dangerous to begin with. But one of the books she gave me was How to Be a Successful Medical Student. And really what it is how to be successful in your life. There are 24 hours in your day, and they said put a schedule around it. And what do I mean by that? If you are busy doing something enjoyable, I like to play basketball. So if I was playing basketball, but I felt like I should have been studying, I wasn't going to enjoy my free time. I'd be stressed in my free time that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, right? Or you're going to dinner with your friends, and the whole time you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get back to my dorm and study, whatever. If you schedule your free time in your day, then you're just fulfilling what you're supposed to do in your day. And I would encourage you to figure out a way in that journey for balance to make sure that when you're on your free time, when you're on your time, that you're enjoying it and you're not stressed about what you should be doing. Because if you are, you're defeating that purpose. And so I think really trying to be present in what you do, whether it's work or play, is really important.
Yeah, I'm actually going out on a limb here that this whole concept, there's no such thing as work-life balance. And that's the truth. I mean, we can be very abstract about it and it's pretty very poetic about it. The work we have chosen as physicians, future physicians, there's no work-life balance. But I think the balance happens, for instance, if you're on a weekend and you have some exam coming up, the future doctors don't go to the party, they study. And this is the time to do all those things. So when you're in your teens and 20s, you do a good job at that time. So when you're older, then you have the money, then you can travel, and then you can find the balance a bit more. So it's a long game, but now is the time to work hard and do all those things. I know it seems a bit harsh, but again, as Dr. Anthony had said, but again, you always have to have some of the things that you like. I mean, I always say that you have to take care of your body, your health. If you do yoga or exercise, make sure those things are scheduled and they actually help you in your brain and sleep and mental health and all those things. So it's not like it's never 50-50, but there should be some scheduled time. And part of which I would highly recommend is taking care of your physical health, because physical health is attached to your mental health. So make sure you're not doom scrolling. I know in my time when we had it easy, there was no like I'm older internet or no like Instagram. So it was easy to do other things. And it's more of a challenge for you guys. So be intentional about it and don't feel bogged down that, oh my God, my life sucks. Trust me, if you work hard now, your life will be much better when you're older. Purvi, was it too much or too harsh?
No, those are amazing golden pearls. I think we have time for one more question before we go to breakout. And you both are welcome to stay. But I know that you both have very busy schedules this morning. I wanted to ask you some of the questions that I'm filtering. One of the things that I see often with not just high school students, but also residents and fellows, every single step in life when a decision making has to happen. I know even in your leadership paths, you have every single day so many decision making that you have to do, right? What is your guiding principle there? What guides you? Because often it's pros and cons. Yeah, your logical mind says something, but then you go, I know a little bit about Dr. Hilliard, the way he thinks, but I would love to hear from both of you. What is your guiding principle? How we can guide these, students that are at a fork in life as well as they are deciding?
I guess in the continue, I don't feel like I should go first, Jamal, every time, but I think two things. I look at data and make a decision with my gut. I think you have to know you have to know your mindset on things. That's one approach. Another thing I often do when it comes down to patient care related things is what would I want my father or my mother to have done? Second. And the third thing is when you're trying on life, try it on, wear it. I'm going to be a scientist. Okay. Try it on, wear it. So I thought, Dr. Day mentioned, volunteer, go into a research lab or go volunteer in a hospital. And if you pass out at the site of blood, maybe you need to be a psychiatrist, right? I mean, these are things that I think are very important. So those are the three things: mother, father, what would I want them to have done in their care, decisions with my gut, and then finally try it on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add on to that. The mention what, actually Dr. Hilliard mentioned, the gut thing. I think that doesn't come instantly. It's again, I said, we don't think that, oh, this is a born leader or born thing. You can actually acquire the skills over time. So when we do our residencies, when you are fellowships from clinical, like you see enough sick patients by the time on your third year, you walk in the door, you see a patient, and you get this gut thing that, oh my God, this patient is going to crash. That comes with experience. In the same way, in leadership and decision making, you start experimenting, try to do the right thing. So, for instance, if I have a group of 20 people or my department or whatever, 40 people, I try to make sure that the decision I'm making, it's not for the 5 people who are making the most noise, but for the 35 people who are quietly and doing the good work. So I don't give in to sort of that emotional blackmailing or the noise. I don't want to please those four or five people at the expense of becoming popular, and then to become popular at the expense of all those other people. So always sort of keep that in your mind that as a leader, you have to look at the greater good, and it's not a popularity contest.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Rana, Dr. Hilliard, for spending your time with us. Now we are going to start the breakout session. Megan, are you back
Yeah, I should
Okay,
hopefully
perfect.
be here. Okay, good.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yes. So we're going to divide out into breakout sessions. This is where you're going to have more one-on-one time with our attendings and faculty who can be able to share a little bit more experiences and personalized questions as well. So our fantastic IT folks are going to be working on that. So stay tuned shortly. It also wouldn't be a Zoom meeting without technical difficulties, so I apologize for that as well. And then afterwards, we're going to regroup for any final words or any questions, but stay tuned for the breakout sessions.